Welcome to Chai After Dark, everyone. I'm Shabnam, and I'm here with my co-host Sameem. Hey, Sameem.
What's up? Hey, Shabnam. Hey, Chai After Dark listeners.
We're going to talk today about a documentary on Max called Twitter, Breaking the Bird.
That's right.
As opposed to Flipping the Bird.
I know. When I started watching it over the weekend, I typed in Flipping the Bird multiple times, and then I texted you, and I was like, oh my God, they're shadow banning tech documentaries. Because I couldn't find the right one,
hilarious.
But I found it.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a weird name, and I don't know. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because today we're going to talk about episodes 1 and 2, and then on Thursday we're going to talk about episodes 3 and 4. So I actually worked at Twitter from 2019 to 2023, like the end of 2022, and the part where I worked there isn't until episode 4, and it's like pretty glossed over. So,
I mean, you were there pretty recently, so
yeah.
Everybody stay tuned. Today, the first 2 episodes that we're going to talk about is more about the origin story, the discovery of Twitter, and then the subsequent media blow up. And that's how the first 2 episodes go. And then number 3 and 4, Shabnam, you're going to come in with some heavy trust and safety stuff that you're not allowed to say, right? Yeah, right. We can't do that.
Oh, yeah.
Trust and safety. Trust fall.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah. That would have been an interesting exercise to do at work. I'm sure it would have violated some legal some legal stuff.
Well, what about staying silent for 7 minutes? That's a little bit easier, I guess.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that next time. Yeah, that doesn't violate any HR
we
policies.
Will have
it's just weird.
Tea from Shabnam on Thursday, so stick around for that. Yeah. But hey, look, when Twitter first got started, I thought it was like the garbage of social media companies from what was released. It was like Facebook, MySpace, and Snapchat, and Twitter. There wasn't really anything else in 2008 to 2012. So I thought it was complete hot garbage, and I've actually never used it. So,
oh, interesting. Yeah. So it's actually the simplest idea, right? And it's kind of taking Facebook's status idea, which is what they talk about in the first episode. They're taking this Facebook status idea, and that's what the entire platform was like a status, right? And then they came up with the 140 character limit. But the idea was that you can communicate to your friends like what you're doing all the time. Okay, so philosophically, I started to think in this era, everything was fascinating about social media, and we didn't think about the implications of if people get addicted to it, what would that look like in society, right? I'm like, maybe just actually talk to your friends instead of trying to read their status that they put on Twitter. And that's actually not what Twitter ended up developing into, but it's interesting that was the concept. Like, you don't need to talk to your friends. You can just see what they're up to. That's basically what social media is. And I don't think that that's like necessarily had a good influence on society overall.
The word is social media, right? So it's not news media, which Twitter ended up kind of becoming, or half journalism, half baked media. But when Facebook was first invented in 2003 or so, I remember getting a Facebook invite with my UC Davis EDU address, right? Yeah. So you needed the EDU address. So I've had my Facebook account for a long, long time. I think I actually ended up deleting it, and then I remade another one with then I got my Gmail account, right, in like 2004. So that was super exciting.
Oh, really?
So then I made my new Facebook account with my new Gmail account. And I totally remember that, transitioning from Hotmail for a few years to Gmail. But the social media thing, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg knew what he had, because MySpace already existed, and the bubbling up of social media, it was already starting. I remember how excited people were to pimp out their MySpace pages in early 2000s with music. And it was
your
like
top
your space,
10,
right? Like, I can't believe I just said that. It's MySpace. It's totally your space, but it was so unique. And I think you're right that it was supposed to be like casual. It was supposed to be like a healthy addition to your life, from what I can remember when times used to be good. Yeah. And now it's just turned into like this shit show. And there's no reason for us to even explain what social media is today, because I'm not even sure what it is. And I don't know what, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is with MySpace was almost like a yearbook kind of a thing, where you had your music, you had your status, you had your like top 8 friends, and like you had your, you know,
that was some shit, by the way, to have
that.
top 8 friends. That's like inviting some serious drama.
Oh yeah, it's complete passive aggression constantly. Yeah, it added. But that's the thing is like, I don't think MySpace replaced social contact. It almost encouraged social contact because it was this passive aggressive thing, and then people would have drama, and it like was almost like a frenzy, and it, like you said, added to your life. I think Facebook is when it kind of started to drift away from that, because Facebook was also like a yearbook / profile. And it started out to just be college students. So like you said, you had to have a .edu email address. I still have my original one from 2004. I like resisted the first year. I was like, this is weird. I was too cool for it. And then I got it. And from 2004, I've had my same Facebook account.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of still a little more like, you know, who's at your school, add people at your school, add people at your classes, add people at other UCs. And then I think Snapchat and Twitter, it turned into like, okay, now you don't really have to talk to people. And I think Facebook eventually evolved into that too, because I remember when it was like my relatives were able to join, I was like, oh, this is not kids at school anymore. You know?
Facebook had a very quick start, like an extremely, extremely quick start. If you watch The Social Network, you'll see it was like within a few weeks that it kind of took over the college campuses.
Yeah.
By the time like my parents got onto it, I was done with Facebook, man. I think I have posted on it. I think I posted on it when I got married both times, which is kind of hilarious, like 04 and then 2017. But I remember in 2010 or 2011, Facebook, that's when it kind of hit its peak. Like, you didn't tag me, you didn't thank me. People started doing those very specific, like,
how come you didn't put a birthday message for me?
And then wishing people a happy birthday. And then people would count up the happy birthdays that they got. And then it was like sort of like a status symbol. So I don't know, man. Life was pretty good until like 2012. It became way too pervasive. I think Instagram added to the complete shallow nature of social media.
I think Instagram and then YouTube and all these things, and it became very much about likes. I think Instagram is really, you're right, where it became about likes.
Because there was no dislike button, and there used to be a thumbs down button on Facebook, or am I mistaken? I think there used to be thumbs down too, and they removed all the thumbs down, and it was to create a like war.
Yeah.
So when Instagram came about, then I don't know. I feel it because I was old enough, right? In 2012, I was still in my mid 30s. I don't know. From there, it was downhill. What do you think? I don't know. I never really got into social media, so. But some people I
think you're right. I agree.
Losing their shit.
I think that now people reuse it as a replacement to socialize with people, and I think you're right. I think that started to happen in the early 2010s. And I think it's like terrible. But even though Twitter started out as being like a platform where you could write your status and talk about what you're eating for lunch and all that, it turned into like a news kind of a mechanism.
Yeah.
And I think that was because basically they were like, celebrities can use this to communicate with their audience and their fans, right? And so it became like this very like celebrity direct to their fans. And I mean, even like up until a few years ago, it was like if there was an earthquake, you'd check Twitter first, you know. Yeah. And now,
right now, as we're recording this, it's 4:30ish on Monday afternoon, May 12th. The NBA draft lottery is right now, and the updates are coming in through Blue Sky, which is, in all effective purposes, Twitter. So you're totally correct. Live news, like that's what they wanted.
Well, so
right? Yeah.
Blue Sky was started by Jack after he left Twitter. Twitter is X.
Yeah. So everybody, when we say Twitter, we are referring to today's X. It's not our decision. It's just how life is.
Yeah, but apparently if you go to twitter.com, it still goes to X.
It redirects, right?
Directs.
So I was an early adopter of Facebook. I would say like a zero adopter of Twitter. Instagram I finally got in like 2014 to 2015, 2016. So I was a late adopter of Instagram. But Snapchat, That came about in like 2011, 2012, and it was literally for dick pics. That's not social media.
Isn't that where Draymond Green sent his dick pic to someone and it ended up all over the internet?
So that was like 10 years ago. You remember that?
I mean, how could I forget?
Okay, wow. You can't screen share it. Or sorry, did you screenshot it?
I didn't screenshot it, but it was in the world.
Yeah. I think that was a pretty common thing on Snapchat. Like around the same time, people were pretty excited about Snapchat. So it was only
They were also pretty excited about dick pics.
Yeah. So one button away from putting it on your story versus sending it to somebody privately, which is what Draymond wanted to do, right? So Snapchat, I think a lot of accidents happened on Snapchat because the nudity was accepted on the stories, but on Instagram and stuff, you can't do that. I never actually understood that, how Snapchat got away with it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm not a huge fan of Snapchat, although I know some people who still use it and things. It's interesting.
I think it's not a dead platform. I was talking to my daughter about it and she showed me her Snapchat, and it's endless. She has thousands and thousands and thousands of messages that she's never opened because there's just so many group messages and so much stuff going on. I finally deleted my Snapchat like 2 weeks ago when I was talking to her because I just never use it. It's been years just sitting on my phone.
Yeah, I don't use my Snapchat either, but I mean, people still use it. I know people that work there. But yeah, Twitter was supposed to be news, right? Twitter was supposed to be different. It was supposed to be a little bit classier.
Was it?
You know?
It has all this porn and stuff on it too, doesn't it?
Well, that's today.
I thought it always
today
had
it does. It always had it, but I think today it's a little more pervasive. It used to be more contained previously.
Yeah, I mean, with OnlyFans coming out, OnlyFans took over all the social media networks as well. So every OnlyFans person has their own Twitter, their own X, their own Facebook, their own Instagram, their own Reddit, and that's how they bring people into OnlyFans, which is like the most stupid, hilarious thing that I don't know if it's stupid.
But OnlyFans is like a Patreon for adults.
Yeah.
Right.
And then people subscribe and then you pay whatever per month. It's certainly just like Patreon or any other creative platform.
I think so I think it does make sense, right? Because they're using all these other social media platforms to drive people to their OnlyFans to get subscriptions. Like,
it's free though, right? That's what I kind of, my issue now, I guess we're kind of moving into advertising. They take cuts from everyone. So if you start a new business here locally, anywhere, like you start a chicken shop in San Diego, you think these Korean chicken shops don't already exist? You got to pay Instagram, Facebook ads, Google ads, search ads, right?
Yeah.
You have to pay.
Sure.
OnlyFans, you don't have to pay. You just go post on Reddit and Instagram, and then it starts coming into 50% of the population's feeds because these dudes are so horny. So that's the one thing that I think if I was going to career transition and this podcast thing didn't work out, I don't have to show everything. I feel like that would be a very
just your
easy
feet,
marketing.
Apparently.
Yeah. Like just my shoulder left one day, right the next day. I don't know. I wouldn't show a lot, but I could do it. I feel like marketing wise, it'd be a lot easier.
That's so weird. I mean, I don't know if that would be interesting to see if you could be successful at it. I mean, I think women can definitely. I don't know how the market is for men, but who knows? Maybe it's the same.
There's got to be men OnlyFans people. There's a comedian I should say, in San Diego that I know, a friend of mine, and she has an OnlyFans. But if you
interesting.
It is interesting. If you subscribe to her OnlyFans, it's like $5 a month. It's a troll thing. It's like her eating like hot dogs or like just literally doing the most mundane day-to-day shit, but then she puts it as a sexual innuendo, but it's not. So then it seems like it's like, oh, I'm an up-and-coming cute female comedian, come look at me naked, but no, there's nothing naked about it. It's her taking like goofy-ass pictures all over San Diego.
That is so random.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say
really
you're going to
funny.
see this and that. It says it, I guess, under a hidden message, but it's pretty funny. Fans, you could make a lot of money if you know how to navigate these social media platforms.
Yeah, that's what people say. A lot of women say they don't show nudity. It's just like, pictures of their feet or pictures of their hands or them doing something
like a hijabi
or,
to take her scarf off. I think that's a thing. I've seen it come up on Instagram.
Wow.
Literally
All
like,
right.
hey, I'm from Pakistan. See me without my... Actually, I think maybe you can like subscribe to OnlyFans, but you can't like create on OnlyFans, I think, in some of these countries.
Oh, interesting.
India for sure. Pakistan, I don't know.
Interesting.
Let's go back a little bit. Okay, we're supposed to be talking about Breaking the Bird. So
okay, let's do it.
Evan Williams, Biz Stone, they're the founders of Twitter. So they come around in 06, 07, and they're like, we really want to start a company. Both of them are already successful in their own right. Evan Williams particularly already sold a social media company to Google.
Yeah.
So he's already could retire if he wanted to. So they start this company. They don't really know what they want the company to be. So they're going to start doing like a podcast company. And then in 2005, Steve Jobs pops out on a stage and he's like, guess what we invented? Podcasting. And then Twitter, I forgot what it was called. It was called like Audio Radio or something, right? The original Twitter name.
Odeo or something, I think. Odeo.
And they were like, oops, just kidding. So in the world of tech, if you can't pivot, then you're fucked, right? Like you're just absolutely fucked. And these guys pivoted quick. And that's when they brought Jack on, former barista, former masseuse, Jack Dorsey.
Yeah. Dude, with them showing Jack at that point in time, I'm like, dude, he looks like he could have dated Phoebe from Friends. Like him and Phoebe in those early days.
References are we going to do in a row?
Like, wouldn't that have been so... They would have had some interesting ass kids.
I think he might have been too intelligent for Phoebe, and that's pretty fucked up for me to say, but Phoebe was a dumbass, right? She's supposed to be... She's endearing, but she's a dumbass. And Jack is not but
they're
a dumbass, right?
They're both... No, Jack's very smart, but they're both quirky.
But he's so quirky, yeah. Actually,
it just would have been...
You're right, yeah. I actually like that, and I was happy to see a former billionaire, because obviously he wasn't a billionaire. He was literally a barista when he joined Twitter.
Right.
To see him still having the nose ring and the funky haircuts and his style before he got his money, that's endearing. Yeah. Because people like Jeff Bezos, they're so uncreative. He had no idea what he wanted to do, so he just decided to become like a grown-up, like high school jock or something. Like, I don't know what Jeff Bezos' style is. He has like cowboy hats. None of it matches. And then he goes into space. Yeah. Why do you need a cowboy hat in space, bro? Anyways, I feel like Jack Dorsey's his own individual, which is cool to see.
Yeah. Well, if you...
I'm not a billionaire lover, by the way. Everyone knows that. I'm just trying to look at the positive side of things sometimes.
Well, Jack Dorsey, he did go through a phase where he emulated other billionaires, and then he went back to being himself, which is cool. Yeah. You know, at least aesthetically, which is interesting. All these billionaires, I mean, these are like quirky ass, nerdy, geeky people that probably wanted to be cool and get validation throughout their younger years. And of course, they can have all kinds of validation and do anything they want now. And so they just do random quirky stuff. Who knows? Maybe Jeff Bezos knew a guy when he was 15 who was really cool that wore cowboy hats. So he's like, I'm going to wear
I don't care about the cowboy hat. It's just more so you can tell that Jeff Bezos has some insecurities from wherever. It doesn't matter. It could be from his childhood, could be from college, but he desperately wants to be cool. He has his plastic wife. And everyone can just Google Jeff Bezos tries to have threesome. He's at this party and there's like a blonde girl. I guess that's her friend, Lauren Sanchez's friend. And he's like the third wheel. It's so obvious. They're like talking to each other, the two women. And then he puts his hand on the blonde's back and like tries to like, you know, like I'm at a club and I'm trying to like put my arm around someone. He's the world's richest man. Weird. Still acting like an 8th grader at a dance. So this $200 billion and this guy can't even get 2 women to pay attention to him. So I feel like I'm serious. I listened to Jeff Bezos' Lex Fridman podcast. Lex Fridman is a super famous podcaster. He's had on like, I think he had on Donald Trump, right? While he was running. And I was like, this guy's intelligent. Jeff Bezos, like he just sounds he sounds very easy to convince of things. Yeah. So I think he is intelligent. Obviously, he was a hedge fund guy before he started Amazon. But in terms of like creativity and stuff, it seems like Jack Dorsey had it.
He did. I think he had a lot of creativity. I like his aesthetic. Like you see just the bird, it's simple. It makes sense. They fly around in schools. The blue was a really great blue. And then just a simple bird on the background. And then eventually because at first when they were establishing Twitter, the TWITTER.com was taken. So they took the vowels out and then they bought the vowels. They bought the vowels back for $10,000. I'm like, that'd be interesting to find that person who sold them the vowels for $10,000
to get Twitter.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked out pretty well for them. I mean, to forego a $500 million acquisition offer from Mark Zuckerberg, that was some good foresight by them.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting too, that they kind of just came up with a number like out of thin air that they were like, this is never going to happen. And Mark actually was like, yeah, sure. And then what was interesting, you talked a little bit about this to me before we got on, but the way basically the culture of Facebook that they said they saw when they went into Facebook, that it was like a room full of like white Stanford engineers and then a different room with the Indian engineers.
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, he's overplayed his card in today's world. History's not going to be kind to that man. To go on to Joe Rogan and basically say all he wanted to say about immigration and stuff like that, like his true colors have been exposed, and he's going to have a that's interesting.
I purposely pick and choose very little tech podcasts to listen to because I have enough PTSD.
Working in this field and all these years of knowing people that have worked at these companies, including ourselves, like don't say we're not involved in all this. I just never got the impression that just because somebody was above me, it meant that they were all that more intelligent. And I think with the Elon Musk stuff coming out, I think people are starting to see now that it's more about a state of mind that you have to become rich and famous and a billionaire, rather than like, oh, you're the most intelligent person on earth and naturally you'll get $1 billion. Doesn't really work like that.
Well, I think it's state of mind and it's also luck, right? Like
of course,
these guys coming up at this time who were engineers built this product that even they didn't know it was going to take on the lives of its own that it's taken on, like for Facebook, for Twitter, for, you know, MySpace, like all this stuff. I don't think any of these guys even thought that through. Like you see them kind of talking about it. I don't know. I've watched the third and fourth episode, so I don't want to like get ahead of myself, but you see them being like confused by some of the trust and safety issues that come up, right? That's in the first two, I think. Am I right?
Yeah. So they literally said once they had to pivot once Steve Jobs announced the podcast, and then once the iPhone came out, it was 3 years later, by the way. So I don't know, these guys were making a desktop version. Then when the App Store came out, that's when they developed the Twitter mobile application, which then by 2010, it was game over because then Ashton Kutcher versus CNN News were trying to see who got the first 1 million followers, which is it makes me really mad. Like,
I know, right?
I don't know why that makes me really mad. I think Ashton Kutcher being involved makes me really mad. But anyways, they didn't know what they were doing in the sense that you build the product first and then the money comes later. And that's what the social network says too, right? When Mark Zuckerberg, they said, bring the users, let's monetize later, or let's worry about revenue later. So all these months and couple years that Twitter was operating, it kept breaking down. Facebook wouldn't break down. Twitter had so many issues where
fail whale.
They made a meme out of themselves.
Yeah.
And it was all over the internet. You'd see a whale. And I remember that whale. I thought it came from Reddit. I didn't realize it was Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cute. It's got like all the little birds trying to carry the whale, you know, above the water. It's wild, it's a cute concept.
It's 140 characters. There's not a lot of video being uploaded. All the servers were doing the heavy work back then, the data centers. It's just kind of strange that you can say into a documentary camera, one of them says, once we pivoted, it only took us 2 weeks to build Twitter. And then from there, it just kind of took off, which is great if you have proper marketing.
Because they actually scaled it. Well, they actually they fixed the tech debt, so it could scale properly.
Did they fix it? Because it sounds like Twitter's been like this for almost 20 years running. Like it seems like it's always going down, but I don't actually know that. I think there's not just luck involved with tech, but it's also who you know who's able to like help you with open source code, whether it's publicly available or whether somebody like just helps in general. And then BC's on Sand Hill Road in Menlo Park, they have a lot of partners, and then they bring on the best engineers or the best trust and safety guy. They brought that lady on that was catching pedophiles on the internet, and they made her trust and safety officer. And she's like, I invented 3 strikes. And I'm like, no, you didn't. She's like, I invented the streak. I'm like,
well, she implemented it for Twitter, I think she means, right? She probably, maybe she based it off of the law.
I am making fun of her, honestly. Put anybody, look, if you have enough experience in tech, anybody can take on a leadership role. I totally believe that.
Well, that's one of the interesting things I think tech has taught me, and I think it has taught you. And I noticed this about you too. We've interviewed some interesting people throughout our time on this podcast, and neither of us really get nervous much. No. And I think it's because we're so used to having
we have billionaires in the room, right? Like, that's how we've been working,
with people who are people that like are supposedly, you know, so important to everybody, and then you kind of realize, well, they're regular people.
The regular people.
You know? Yeah. And so I think that's kind of how I approach now. Yeah. And before they die, apparently, while they're alive, they do.
While they're alive, too.
So, yeah.
I don't know. Like, we have mentioned this a few times that we're adjacent to some successful people, whatever. But I don't think it makes my life any better. And sometimes I don't think it makes their life any better. They have the same issues, the same problems.
Yeah.
Love, family. Like, finances are not an issue, sure, but then sometimes they just want more.
Of all the people in the documentary, I had the most FaceTime with Del Harvey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Is she cool?
She's cool.
Is she still there?
I like her. No.
Yeah.
I believe she left, if I recall correctly.
But she was there all through 2010s.
Yeah, she was there until... I don't know exactly when she was there until, but she was there at least through 2022.
Yeah.
I know that. I don't know if she left post Elon or before Elon. I can't remember.
Yeah. Don't you think it's a little funny that these two billionaires, and Evan Williams and Biz Stone are multi-billionaires, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are they doing this documentary? There's nothing super interesting in it. The first 2 episodes, all of this is readily available information.
You know what's funny is I can only imagine if I was in their shoes, it's probably just kind of nostalgic to remember this wild ride and this crazy story that you went through. It's probably nostalgic.
They say it. They're like, we don't even know what we did. We just ended up here.
Yeah.
It wasn't by design. Well, they didn't even know what the product was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the black screen of death that they asked Jack to, be part of the documentary, and he's decided not to, which I could see why. I mean, I could see why.
I don't think he's presented in a negative light. I think he was presented in a pretty accurate light, but he seems like a somewhat negative person. Because they weren't very nice to him, Biz Stone and Evan Williams. They were like, we're going to fire him. He is going to sewing classes. That's what they said. So it's, hey, man, we know you have all these side quests, including starting Square in 2009, which is amazing.
He was the CEO for both companies for a while.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And I think part of that time when he was for CEO for both companies, I worked there. And the companies the headquarters were like a few blocks from each other. Yeah. So you could like walk back and forth. But I interviewed at Square too.
Oh, you did? Did you Square first and then Twitter?
Yes, Square first and then Twitter. And Square's cool. They give you hella cool swag when you go in for an interview.
You worked at Twitter. You didn't get any cool shit?
No, I got cool shit there too. They give you a really nice package at orientation and stuff.
Yeah, I got this from Apple when I worked at Apple. Class of 2021. I got this.
Nice.
So, and then I got like some poncho. Apple does not give good swag. Calling you out.
Oh, that's funny. In the later episodes, we'll see some interesting stuff about swag. So
this is a good segue. I wanted to talk about this. So when they first created their office in San Francisco, remember like in the early 2000s, it was all about the office space, the masseuses at Google, the slides. They had a slide into a ball pit. And then they had stuff like that. So it was such a feat. It was like an honor to be invited to lunch at one of these companies. And I've been to all these companies. I've had lunch at Google, Facebook, everywhere. It's pretty fun, especially if you don't work there because there's no pressure.
Yeah.
You're just taking advantage of all of the perks and stuff. So they're showing like the Twitter perks and stuff like that. And it was just such a strange time where today, I don't think I would join a company because their offices are cooler than another office. But back then, that's how people were joining companies. They're like, the Twitter office is cooler than the Dropbox office. I'm going to go work here. Yeah. I'm going to get this. Do you guys get lunch and dinner? Remember those? People would ask. Like, and then me and you used to go to our friends' offices to get dinner sometimes. I remember in 2014, 2015. So it's funny to like, I think you're right. It is nostalgic because it's nostalgic for us too to listen to these guys talk about
it's
how
totally
they were building
nostalgic.
their company. Yeah.
It was an interesting time. I mean, people weren't doing remote work the way they are now, so you didn't even have that option. So it was like you wanted it to be nice. You wanted it to feel homey. You wanted it you wanted there to be good food and options and all that when you're there. I remember there were certain Fridays where we had South Asian food. There'd be like chicken tikka masala and stuff like that at work.
Yeah. This went on to like 2017-ish, and then it started to go downhill from there. Once companies started becoming public and stuff, then they're like, the free gravy chain is over.
Yeah, I heard that there was even some more yummy perks before I joined Twitter that they got rid of, like ice cream on Fridays.
The first thing Elon Musk did, wasn't it like he like removed toilet paper from the bathroom and stuff like that? Like that's
my God, I didn't hear that. I did not hear that. So I don't know. That's doesn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, why is he against wiping your ass? I don't understand.
I mean, I don't know, but Americans don't use water, right? So they do just wipe their ass dry. You know what? Whatever.
But you still need toilet paper for wiping your ass dry. Also, by the way, whenever I've talked to white people in America about bidets, they're always so interested in the like $400 Japanese ones. I'm here to tell everybody in America, PSA, you can for $19.99 get a bidet on Amazon. I got them, 3 of them, $60 for my bathrooms, and all the toilets have bidets, and it's just the same. You get the same effect, and you don't need to spend $400 for the Japanese kind.
You can also use a gardening water container and cut off the spout.
Like our parents used to do.
Yeah. And then cut off the spout so it doesn't hook down. So it like actually, you got to have some gravity involved. And you got to
basically water your flowers, you know? It's like, you just water your flowers.
There's a way to do it where
there.
it's not nasty, but this is not what we're talking about today. But somebody like Jack Dorsey, that guy 100% has bidets all over his mansion in Seacliff in San Francisco. I think that's where he lives. That guy spent way too much time in East Asia to not have bidets all over his house.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he does. I bet he does. I bet he has a dryer and everything.
Yeah. My favorite Jack Dorsey story is when he started Square. He naturally has a lot of different interests, right? So he wanted to be a masseuse before he joined Twitter. He was taking sewing classes while he was CEO of Twitter.
Well, a character of him could have hooked up with Phoebe for sure.
Totally.
Because she was a masseuse too.
Yeah.
And she didn't she work at the coffee shop Central Perk for a while?
You know she's not a real person, right? And Jack Dorsey is.
I know, but
yeah. You think Jack Dorsey hasn't railed through a bunch of San Francisco baristas? Let's be real. You don't think he's come on? You don't think he walks into Phil's Coffee and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" You don't think he gets his own manic pixie girls whenever he wants? I don't know. I'm just fucking around.
Yeah, I have no idea like what
Jack
his
Dorsey's not a pervert, but he might be.
Is,
I just don't know that. When Jack Dorsey bought Tidal from Jay-Z because he was hanging out with him at the Super Bowl, that's my favorite Jack Dorsey story. He bought it sight unseen, essentially. No revenue figures, nothing. He just wanted to be cool. Then him and Jay-Z are hanging out at the Super Bowl suite, and all of a sudden, Jack Dorsey bought Tidal for $1 billion.
What's Tidal?
Exactly. TIDAL, like Tidal Wave. It's Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Tidal. It's a music streaming service, and it was created by Jay-Z. It had Kanye's first album on there. Not first album, but like one of his albums that dropped. And like, I don't know when Tidal came out, like mid-2010s or something like that. They were a client of mine at my last tech company before they basically went under. But Jack Dorsey owns a music streaming service. And then now he owns a bunch of Bitcoin, and then he changed the name of Square to Block. So it's Block.
Yeah.
If you want to buy any Square stock.
Interesting. That's a better change than Twitter to X.
Yeah.
Like, because the trademark of Square lends itself to be called Block. But the Twitter, gosh, like the best part about Twitter, I think, was the marketing.
Was Twitter.
it was tweeting, Twitter,
the trust and safety stuff. I liked all that stuff. I know I never used Twitter, but the way that we saw Elon Musk, I know we're going to talk about this more on Thursday, the way that he dismantles, it showed you that it was a pretty nicely built company. It wasn't actually as bloated as I thought it was.
Yeah.
And then he was saying it was bloated, but we're going to talk about it on Thursday. Compared to other companies, we'll go through some market cap valuations in the tech world, and then including what Facebook bought Instagram for and what it's worth today potentially, and what Google bought YouTube for. So we'll talk about all that on Thursday. But these first 2 episodes was pretty nostalgic. I feel like if I would have met these fools, given them a few $100s, I could have been a billionaire too.
Yeah. You know what they remind me of? They remind me of the show Silicon Valley on Max on HBO. They remind me of like those guys. It's literally, that's what they were. Like that show's actually a pretty accurate representation of.
Oh, it's so real. Yeah.
Yeah.
That show's actually more representative of something like YouTube, because YouTube, I think, came out in 2005.
Yeah, you're right.
It was a little bit more like garage based in Palo Alto. These Twitter dudes were already millionaires. Twitter's kind of started the San Francisco tech scene.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The tech scene started a long time ago. My dad came here in 1971 to work in tech, so it's a different kind of tech back then, semiconductor, actually building computers. Then the Palo Alto, Cupertino tech scene came out of HP.
Silicon Valley,
Xerox, Apple, so on and so forth.
And then it was cool to be in San Francisco, so then they moved.
And that was like Twitter and stuff, right?
Phase.
So all the bigger legacy companies, they're not in San Francisco. Facebook's not in San Francisco, right? They're in Menlo Park. But it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Twitter, Uber, all that stuff started coming. Square, 07 plus. Kind of interesting.
And then there's a whole like Patreon and stuff are in kind of the newer little strip near the stadium.
San Francisco's got some crazy,
Giant Stadium.
It's not just tech, right? If you go beyond software tech, San Francisco also has a lot of hardware tech, not including Apple, obviously. That's like the biggest one.
Right.
But then they have a lot of e-commerce too, right? Like a lot of these mall stores that came out of nowhere, like Rothy's, Chubby's, which is a very specific shorts brand that a lot of dudes wear. It's all out of San Francisco. Quince, which copies famous designs from like Majuri and other companies, that's out of San Francisco. I don't know, man. It's overrun. That's why we left.
Well, and now it's going to be interesting to see, because I think with COVID and working remote, and I know like a lot of companies are trying to do like hybrid and have people come back, but it's not the same, and the city's changed. So I don't know.
There's deals to be had too, right? Condos are literally half off from 2018. So a condo that was 1.2 million in 2018, you can pick it up for $650.
Yeah.
Today.
I know. It's wild.
But who wants to live in San Francisco, and then you have $1,000 HOA, and then you are potentially going to get stabbed once you walk outside your apartment? And not to go all Fox News and scary and shit. They weren't wrong. And one of the main reasons we moved to San Diego was to get away from crime seemingly everywhere in the Bay Area. So I didn't want to say it like that, but these tech billionaires, the last thing I kind of wanted to say, and the reason I brought that up is because I think they did unknowingly contribute to this haves versus have-nots in the Bay Area, which is very, very prevalent. It's one of the most dichotomy of rich versus not that I've seen, other than a third world country like Mumbai or something, just slums. But these billionaires absolutely contributed to this. 1% of the population below them makes their $300,000-$400,000 salaries at these companies. But what about the rest? Not all 12 million people in the Bay can work at Twitter. There's 3,000 employees.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, rant over.
There was like 7,000 at some point, but that's another story.
Dude, Twitter had an office in San Jose next to this office that I worked at in like 2009.
Near Santana Row?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Or maybe, no, it was North First Street. Oh, you're right. It was Santana Row. Yeah.
It was Santana Row, right? Yeah.
I remember that. I don't know why I just thought of that, but RIP Twitter, right?
RIP. Twitter has has flown away. Twitter 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 has flown aw So one of the interesting things that happened was they kicked Jack out, basically, right?
Yeah.
So he starts the company. It's his idea. They build the company.
Well, it's not his. Like,
and then
the company was not his idea. Like, the product is his idea. They bring
the
him on
product
later.
was his idea, because first it was Odeo, right? And then they had to pivot because of Apple. So they pivot into basically, they pivot into what we now know as, or what came to be known as Twitter, which is like, you know, a quote unquote status, right, that you can put out there. And then they start getting users and they need to scale, and they feel like he's too idealistic. He can't be the CEO. So they kick him out. Even though they're the ones that initially were like, it was your aesthetic, your idea, you become CEO, then they kicked him out.
I agree with it, sort of. This motherfucker went to Washington, D.C., and had the balls to tell everyone that he's going to save the people of Iraq by getting them on Twitter. No. I don't remember that. I usually remember stories like that. This guy was on ABC News. He went with Obama, who also used Twitter, by the way, to do his social media campaign. So he's the one that started all the political stuff on the internet. But anyways, Jack Dorsey, his brain was somewhere else. What are you doing in Iraq, dude? And that's when
he was
were
marketing.
Like, what the fuck is going on? We have to fire him.
Yeah. He was like marketing and that kind of thing.
But at that point, he wasn't even CEO. They had already fired him by that point, and he was still
he was
marketing.
Just on the board. Yeah. He was
and
on the board.
And he wouldn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, he wouldn't talk to anybody on the board, but he was still marketing and representing the company because it was like his baby, you know? Yeah. And I wonder if he had a vision, because one of the things that they talk about in the documentary and that I remember as an employee is they were very much like, we're not a social media company, we're a news media company, right? And so I think that was kind of what they were trying to position themselves as. And that being the case, if Jack had that in his mind, I could see it making sense, like doing all these things, like going abroad and, you know, whatever. But it's also weird because it's like, you know, a few years before that, you're like some random barista guy in San Francisco. That's what's strange about tech. People end up doing things they have no business doing.
Yeah, you know? And we said that in the middle of this episode. That's exactly what I meant. In tech, I find it hard to respect people in leadership only because I know how they got there. It's usually random politics, or it's just tech is, once the product is built, tech is the easiest industry to work in. Because at that point, you're just greasing the wheels. And so when I worked at Apple, dude, my managers didn't even know the difference between a publisher and developer. And that's literally what we worked in, like gaming and stuff like that. It was wild. And I had to quit after a year because my brain was breaking.
I once had someone at one of my jobs ask me what a log is. Another lawyer asked me what logs are. I had to explain to them what logs are.
You're like, when you eat too many burritos, you got to go drop a log.
It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, life's interesting and
it is.
Whatever. You know, it's been a wild ride for me in tech, and it's been super high highs and super craziness. And, you know, all the while life is still happening. And, you know, marriages, I mean, not marriages.
Dude,
just
what's going on with you right now?
But like,
are you quitting?
I'm just
Are you
like,
having some sort of like, I'm out of tech?
No, I'm in tech.
You're in tech, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not a baby in my career anymore, right? I'm like definitely mid-career. So it's just kind of interesting to look back on it. Like in the beginning, I was so like wide-eyed and excited. And not that I'm, you know, super jaded now, but I'm like, wow, this has been an interesting ride at an interesting time in tech, because I remember these times. Obviously, I wasn't at Twitter in 2010 and I was like a lot younger, but I remember all this stuff going on. Like we've lived in the Bay Area the whole time. So it's interesting. It's really interesting.
Sounds like you need to do some ayahuasca Jack Dorsey shit, and maybe you'll get a nose piercing and build a product that changes the world.
You know, Elon bought Twitter for $54.20. $54.20.
This guy,
so maybe
I'm sorry, dude. He gave up an extra $12 billion just so he could add 420 to it. It's weird.
Hey, I'm just happy that
you were there. Okay, yeah, the higher
that
it
I
went,
was there and I got the stock money.
Yeah, I'm sure you are happy. Hey, look.
So
we weren't that negative in this episode. I feel like we've been more negative in the past when we talk about tech, because we did work in tech, and what these guys did is impressive. And we do understand that it takes
very impressive
16-hour days to do something like this. When I say it's easy, we mean like later. If you've been in the industry for 15 years and you're still working 16-hour days, something wrong with you, bro. Like, unless you're starting a company, there's no reason you should be working 12 to 16-hour days that many years into tech, right? Any industry, I would say. So
I see what you're saying, but I think there's a certain point, like engineers have to. They have to. If they're building like something, or they're in a sprint, or like there are certain times when if there was like a data breach or something that I was working on, I would have to work weird hours and.
Well, I sold advertising, so I guess I had a different role in tech. You were trust and safety. I wasn't. I was lying.
Yeah, I wasn't trust and safety. I was legal, but that's hilarious. But it depends on the job. It depends on the situation. Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right in that you should learn to be more efficient as your career progresses. Obviously, you know, like if you don't, that's pretty lame. Like you should know how to do things more quickly.
Here we are, career counseling, career coaching by Shabnam and Sameem. Email us at chaiafterdark@chaiafterdark.com if you want to learn more on how to make it in your career and then unceremoniously quit like I did and start a podcast.
You know, I have to say, one of the biggest things I've learned, and I know I'm saying this twice because I've already said this, but I used to get really nervous, like, oh my God, this person's important and stuff like that. And like after all these years in tech, I'm like, whatever. I'm like unimpressed by everyone.
Like, oh, I'm sorry. Let's just say it. Mark Zuckerberg, I don't even know if I would even give him the time of day. I'm serious. And I have seen him at a Menlo Park Mexican restaurant like 16, 17 years ago.
That's hilarious.
But I didn't approach. I was too like young. And back then I didn't hate him. I did watch him on Joe Rogan this year as well. And he literally says, what happened to the masculinity? Guys aren't guys anymore. And he's talking like that. And then he goes on Theo Von, and Theo Von's like, so, like, do you drink coffee? And he's like, no, I don't put substances in my body. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? It's coffee. It's been around for thousands of years.
But okay, so we're but isn't it funny? Like
what are you
we're
saying?
In this. Well, okay, so we're in this industry, right? So we've been around nerdy, dorky.
I would have ripped this guy apart if he talked to me like that. I was like, don't waste my time, bro. I don't have time for this shit.
But then, okay, think about it. So now he's going on Joe Rogan. He's going on Theo Von. He's going on all these people that we think are like celebrities. But those people are probably dorks too in their own way. They're just like slightly cooler because they're in a different industry, right? Like tech people are dorks. They're like nerdy dorks for the most part. But then if you're like a comedian or celebrity, you have like this facade of being like slightly cooler. But like everyone's the same. Everyone's a weirdo.
Did you send me this comedian's take on what we're just talking about right now, where he's like the nerds and the jocks have gotten together? Like Joe Rogan and the jocks have the platform, right? Because when you're in high school, people listen to the jocks. Now the jocks have the platform. The right-wing platform is all jocks.
And the jocks are talking to the nerds?
And the jocks are talking to the nerds because that's where the money's going to come from for the jocks. Like Joe Rogan is paid by a tech company.
Yeah.
He's paid by Spotify. Right? That's why he makes $200 million every 5 years. So now they're like, we need to keep these guys in our circle. So the nerds and jocks have come together because they're the most insecure people on either side of the spectrum.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I thought you sent it to me, but I think I was just scrolling last night. I saw this comedian. He made that joke, and I was like, this is perfect. And it was way better. I can't remember who it was. I was a little... But it was funny. Maybe we should go.
You were a little 5420. All right, let's get out of here.
Right? Thank you so much, everyone. Thursday, we're going to review Breaking the Bird Twitter documentary on Max, episodes 3 and 4. Hey, Shabnam, where should people find us?
People should find us at Chai After Dark everywhere on all socials and all podcast platforms. And give us a 5-star review and write us a nice little note.
5 stars only. Thank you so much. Let's Twitter jingle out of here. 140 characters only.